Hi, folks. I'm Jamie Hiles.
I'm Lydia Judy.
And I'm Derek Lemaster.
And this is Scream Bloody Movies, the podcast where we discuss the horror news, review a movie each week, and then aconize that movie. Derek, why were you so slow on the intro?
I'm starting to feel this wine.
I can tell. Though it's going to be great when we try to synchronize Scream Bloody Movies at the end of this podcast. I can not wait.
It's going to be the best.
For that. How are you guys doing?
Doing okay.
I made it. So that's half the battle.
That is half the battle. That's true. You guys. So we have some horror news this week. Not as much as last week, and not quite as many interesting tidbits. But I'm really excited to talk about today's episode. I think it was the movie we reviewed this week, Candyman. Spoiler if you haven't read the title of the episode. Is I think it's going to be fun to dissect and to dive into. But before we do that, let's get on to the movie news. So let's start with this. I found out this is interesting. So I guess Bad Robot is doing a TV series version of The Shining called Overlook Hotel.
Ooh.
That explores untold stories of the Overlook Hotel. It was originally supposed to be, it was directed by, let's see, what does it say here? It was originally supposed to be on HBO Max, but they passed on it. But it appears that it's finding a new home. It says the company and studio Warner Brothers are currently shopping the show, which is expected to land in a new home soon. So it doesn't have a home yet. But they felt like it was not a good fit for the HBO Max. What do you think about the idea of an Overlook Hotel series?
Love it.
I'm intrigued.
Yeah, I mean, there's tons of stories that could be told in theory using the Overlook as the hub.
Yeah, ironically, I just watched like a little YouTube video. It wasn't a little, it was like 20 minutes long, but it was a review of the movie, the Stanley Kubrick movie, and just how meticulous he was about that movie and the way that shots were arranged and what they could mean. I think I had never heard like the perspective that they took about that movie. I had not heard that before, but as they were going through it, and maybe it's just the power of suggestion, but like I was like, yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense. It was, do you want me to tell you what the perspective was?
Sure.
So it was that Shelley Long's character had mental illness. And Jack was not mentally ill. So all the stuff that was happening.
Oh, so that's
imagining.
It's a different twist on it, I see.
Yeah. But anyway, it was interesting to like the way they dissected it. Not
that
necessarily
movie
for that perspective, but just how intense Stanley Kubrick was.
Yes, he's very intense. I would like to say that I am not as intense of a director. I would hope not to be. I also wish that I was a tenth as talented. But what are you going to do? You have to take one or the other.
A great chess player.
Yeah. Lydia, so you're a fan of The Shining, yeah?
Yeah.
So you think this has legs as a series?
Definitely. I've always been kind of obsessed with the idea of going to the Stanley Hotel. And I always bring it up anytime somebody's like, we need to go on a vacation. I'm like, let's go to the Stanley Hotel. And nobody ever wants to go.
Hey, we'll go.
Because they built an entire... Did they build a hotel for this? For that movie?
I think so. Yeah, I think it's just sets. Yeah, I think they built the hotel for sure. So it's not obviously the Stanley, but that's probably the closest thing I will ever get to wanting to go. But yeah, I think there's definitely a ton of stories they could come up with for that. And I love spin-offs with the Stephen King universe, so I'm down. I'll watch it.
Yeah.
So real quick, I know we're spending a lot of time on this topic. Is this going to be a limited series or it's just going to be a running series?
Doesn't say. Doesn't say. It appears to be a TV series, like that's going to last for a few minutes.
The last thing I'll say about this is I would be more of a fan of it being a limited series because inevitably in any series you run out of material.
Well, it depends on what the end goal is. If the goal is just to tell like a weekly series that's not serialized, then you can go for as long as you wanted. I mean, think of like a Tales from the Crypt style.
Now that's a little different. I would have
like a Tales from the Crypt style stories that, but they all tie into the Overlook Hotel. That would make sense. Only if you had Jack Nicholson as the Crypt Keeper.
Oh my God.
He's getting there.
Yeah. I mean, it'd be excellent. Okay, so let's move on. Guys, this news. I don't know how you guys are going to feel about it, but so there's a new Predator movie coming out again. This movie is called Skull. It's an origin story about the first time a predator comes to Earth, and filming is almost completed on this. What do you guys, A, think about a new Predator movie, and B, think about this concept?
You want to go first on this one, Derek?
Sure. So, like their thing is that they hunt for kind of sport, but like it's the tradition, right? They try to find the hardest prey. I just don't know how, because I just judging based on some of the previous movies and really back to Predator 2 with Danny Glover, where he throws him that old style gun. So you like that one item lets you realize they've been here for a long time. I just don't know how interesting of a story that is if you're hunting a primitive man. Well, I don't know. I like the Predator franchise, but I'm not sure how that's going to work out.
Lydia.
Yeah, my initial thought was like I'm excited because I love the Predator and I love seeing that. I love the character of like just an alien running around. I've always liked the Predator. My mom was like obsessed with it, so but yeah, I didn't think about that. Like, when is this going to take place?
So according to this, it says the plan was for Skull to, let's see. So it has a Comanche woman who goes against gender norms and traditions to become a warrior. So we're at least dealing with a Comanche tribe.
All right. I'm excited now.
He reveals
what
that
they should have done? They should have set it in like old Japan. They should have faced off against samurais.
Oh, that would be cool.
Yeah, you just want to see a predator killed with a samurai sword, Derek. Don't you even lie about it.
Or ninjas. Hey, I'm just saying they probably would have been a better challenge.
So, yeah, it says the story is more akin to The Revenant than it does any film in the Predator canon. So that's interesting. Also,
so
concerning.
Real quick, is the Predator the bear?
I'm guessing.
Or is it
I'm guessing.
Leonardo DiCaprio's character?
It sounds interesting. I mean, anything. I was pretty hyped about The Predator, the newest one, when it was coming out, because it's directed by Shane Black, written by Shane Black and Frank Decker. I was all in. I was like, I love those guys as a writing team, and I love Shane Black's movies. And then I watched it, and it is not good.
I've not seen it.
It is not good.
I'm trying to remember which one you're talking about.
It's the newest one, the one with
Olivia Munn.
Olivia Munn's in it. Keegan-Michael Key's in it. Thomas Jane's in it.
A giant-ass predator.
There's a giant-ass predator in it.
Okay, yeah.
The super predator, as they call him.
Yep.
Which is what I also call Congressman from Florida.
No. Not that it would be a challenge. It might be a challenge. They should have set this on Krypton.
They can't set it on Krypton. They're two completely different stories.
They can do whatever they want.
They can't. They don't have the rights, man.
You know what? I would have called it like Venton and then alluded to.
Listen, drink your wine and be quiet. I'm going to move on to the next story here in a second. So, yeah, I'm excited for it. I think it'll definitely be better than the latest one we got. In my opinion, there's really only one great Predator movie, and it's Predator. I like Predator 2 for what it is. It's fine. I really enjoyed Robert Rodriguez's produced Predators with Adrian Brody. I think that's pretty solid.
I like that one too. Yep.
Alien vs. Predator movies.
I liked AVP.
AVP 2, I am not a fan of. You can't see what's going on. It's too dark. Literally.
No, that is true.
It's like they filmed it during a blackout.
Yeah, I didn't like the AVP movies because they were a Alien or a Predator movie.
Yeah.
Just as a standalone. Yeah. It was fun.
It was definitely fun.
Two franchises facing off.
So, Lydia, this news will excite you, I think. I don't know if you guys heard about this, but Nicholas Hoult has been cast in a new TV show, a new Universal violent comedy coming out called Renfield. A story about him being Dracula's henchman and how shitty a job it is. It's a fun, extremely violent comedy because I've got a crutch in its violence. So, it's a comedy starring Nicholas Hoult, who, of course, plays Beast in the X-Men First Class movies, starring as Redfield. What do you guys think of this?
I don't know what to think about
it. Yeah, I don't either.
I'm excited. I think it's a great idea. Because if you stop and think about it, being a Dracula henchman would be a terribly shitty job.
Well, is he a ghoul?
No, Renfield is a familiar, essentially.
Yeah.
He's a familiar.
That's a better franchise to reference.
Yeah, he's familiar.
You know where I was going, right?
Fright Night?
No, Vampire in Brooklyn.
Oh, yeah. We'll get to that one day. That's a good one. But yeah, he's kind of he's a familiar and, eats bugs and what have you. But I think that's pretty good casting, too. I think he has the look to be a Renfield, for sure.
I think he'll do well.
This is interesting. This is another link in our series of Rob Zombie Monsters updates.
Oh, good.
So I've got some new pictures to show you guys from the new Monsters movie. Rob Zombie just shared some costumes and what have you. So I'll share my screen and we'll give this a look. See. Okay, so here's the back of Grandpa's coat, it looks like.
Okay.
Here's the front of this cape. Looks great, I think.
Yeah.
I'm assuming this would be Lily. Yeah?
Yeah.
And then Marilyn, I'm going to assume, yeah?
That or an astronaut.
Yeah, it's interesting, that one. But here's the big news, guys. Are you ready for this? We're going to show you what Herman is going to look like. Or at least what one of the molds of his head. You ready? There he is.
I mean, he looks Herman-like.
Looks pretty great, I feel like.
Yeah.
What do you think, Lydia?
Yeah, it's not too bad. It's hard to say.
It has that zombie aesthetic, of course, right?
Yeah.
But it's also very Herman-like, so that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And here's costumes drawn for them.
So, okay, so that's the
Lily.
The gown that we saw.
Yep, that looks like Lily's gown. And there's Herman's suit. And Herman looks like Herman. And here's some set construction. Looks like they're going to probably building the house, you think? The facade of the house?
Yeah.
Mockingbird Lane. Yep, construction of Mockingbird Lane. So they're building the house instead of using the one that's actually on the Universal lot. Probably what I would have done, but what are you going to do?
Yeah, I'm just curious what their budget is for this.
This would be a cool guy.
Yeah, I am too. So that's interesting. What are you guys' thoughts on that?
I'm mixed.
You're mixed on it?
Yeah. I'm not a fan of Grandpa's, but Herman looks good. And inevitably, it's going to be the material. So
Yeah.
Yeah. That
I wish him the best.
Yeah, Grandpa's kind of looks like you would find that in Hot Topic, maybe, but. And I mean, the spiderweb thing just kind of looks like a tablecloth that I have. But
very good.
But Herman looks okay.
Herman doesn't look too bad.
Okay, I figured I would just share that with you since we've been on this journey watching these anyway. So once we get a trailer, we'll definitely review it.
Are you going to mention the topic that you and I discussed today? Not that it's movie news, but it was something you uncovered.
Oh, yeah, we'll talk about that right before we start actually, maybe after it. Probably what we'll talk about.
Okay. Yep, that's fair.
So, I don't know if you guys knew this, but they're making an animated version of Night of the Living Dead called Night of the Animated Dead.
Nice.
Is this the Dollar General version?
It has, well, listen to this cast. It has Josh Duhamel as Harry, Dule Hill as Ben, Catherine Isabel from Ginger Snaps as Barbara. So it looks like it's just like an animated version of Night of the Living Dead. What are you guys' thoughts on this?
I wonder what the animation is going to look like.
Well, I can show you.
That's going to make that makes a difference to me.
I'm glad you asked, Lydia, because I can show you what the box art looks like. You guys ready for this?
Oh, yeah.
There's the box art.
Oh, okay.
If it looks like that, I'm down for it.
Yeah, that looks cool.
Looks pretty good, right?
Just cover art.
Here's the full box. Looks pretty good.
Honestly, that looks like it would be a better video game. But
I mean, it would be great. But it's coming out on Warner Brothers Digital on September 21st and Blu-ray October 5th of this year. So that might be something we look out for, right? And give it a watch. You guys excited about the concept of this?
I am now more that I saw the cover art. I just hope they stick with that aesthetic and how it looks.
Yeah, I think for me, it's going to have to be very much art driven to pull it off. I think.
Yeah, I mean, Night of the Living Dead's a timeless story.
Yeah.
But it's also a story that's been told a bunch of times now.
Yeah.
And with diminishing returns, I feel like. I mean, they're inevitably going to be diminishing because you can't top George Romero's classic movie. I mean, the movie is already perfection. It's what it needs to be.
Mm-hmm.
But I really dig the Tom Savini, George Romero written one from 1990 starring our star of tonight, Tony Todd. I might have to check that one out in the future. That's a great remake in my opinion. I'm showing my hand if we do review it, but whatever.
I think there's a weird thing going on with animated stuff being remade too. I found out recently that they remade the original Pokemon movie, like the first Pokemon movie.
They remade it?
They remade it like today's cartoon style, where it's like CG instead of like.
But is it the same movie?
It's the same movie, different animation.
Really?
Crazy.
That's fascinating.
Yeah. So I'm like, I was kind of like not for it, but that's because I'm old now. So
yeah, I mean, look, computer generated stuff looks great. The new CG animation is great, but you give me a Looney Tunes short any day with that Chuck Jones hand drawn Tex Avery stuff.
Yeah, hand drawn. I mean, there's just something special about it,
Magical, yeah.
I'm sure at least Jamie, you've probably seen this. Have you ever seen Beowulf? It was an animated movie
with the Angelina Jolie one.
Mm.
Yeah. I would have loved to have seen a horror movie in that
style
type of animation. Yeah, that would have been pretty cool.
Yeah,
I remember watching it and I was like, man, this looks really good. But anyway,
it does. And they made Polar Express, and they did make a horror movie because you get to see the dead eyes.
Oh yeah,
I guess. Is that the same technology?
Yeah, Same
I
technology.
wouldn't have guessed that. Anyway.
So last but not least in horror news, guys, the wallet's going to get a little lighter because it's confirmed that in October they're doing a 4K HD release of Wes Craven's Scream. So it's getting a royal treatment, the complete full 4K scan. So that's exciting news. And now my big problem is also that comes out is the Halloween box set on 4K. And I'm gonna need those Halloween movies. At least 1, 2, and 3.
How many copies of those movies do you currently own?
Of Halloween?
Yeah.
I only own the Blu-ray and the 4K of the original Halloween. And well, no. Yeah, that's it. That's it. Because I got rid of the other one once I got the new Blu-ray set. So that's it. But I'm going to give the old 4K, because it's not true 4K, away to get the true 4K. It's not the same as Evil Dead 2, just because I own that motherfucker like 6 times. Can never have too many copies of Evil Dead 2, folks. Never.
That's true.
Can build a fort out of them during the apocalypse. All right, guys. So that was kind of the horror news. Like I said, not a lot of big stuff. There's a new trailer out for a new Red Band trailer for Don't Breathe Part 2, which we can look at in the future. That's kind of it. There's no new, Toxic Avenger news, unfortunately, Derek. We'll get some more. But so let's get started on Candyman. All right, so this is not either of your guys' first time watching Candyman, I'm sure, right?
Nope.
Okay, so Derek, what's your relationship with Candyman? Like, when was the first time you saw it, and how long's it been since you've seen it before this time?
You know what? First time I saw this, it came out in '92, so it had to be the early '90s, because I would have been just, teetering on being a teen. So it's probably the first time I've seen it, and then, oh my gosh, how many times have I seen this movie? I remember it used to be on USA, the network channel. They used to play it periodically there. So I mean, all in all, I've probably seen this movie a dozen times.
Well, I mean, I meant when's the last time you've seen it before this time?
Did you and I watch it at some point?
I think that's the last time I watched this too. Was
It's been a while.
Yeah, that was in the early 2000s.
Mm-hmm.
Been a while. Lydia, what's your relationship with Candyman?
I probably didn't watch it until I was probably around 20 when I watched it for the first time. My friends always talked about it, and one of my friends really liked that. It was like one of her favorites, so I finally watched it, and I was like, okay, this is pretty good. And I watched it a couple times since then, and I just watched it not too long ago. So
yeah. So right off the bat, Candyman starts with like all movies do, an intro, like the opening credits, and it plays one of the strengths of this movie, which is its music by Philip Glass. What do you guys think of Philip Glass's music in this movie?
It's really good. I love it.
Yeah, I do like it. I feel like it set the tone of the movie. That opening scene, I mean, both figuratively and literally, it set the tone. I do feel like throughout the movie, it might have been overused a little bit, but it definitely set the tone, and it was very appropriate for the movie.
Yeah, it borders on being a little too bombastic at times, like a little bit overused, but the music itself is fantastic. I love the score. I love the score. I love the whole choral motif of it and what have you. So yeah, I'm a fan. So this movie starts with that theme, and we're showing basically the city, and it's kind of setting us the tone of what this urban sprawl looks like, and it's showing us kind of the haves and have-nots, because the movie is at its core is a commentary on social divide and gentrification, really.
Yeah, this is the second week in a row.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. We couldn't have programmed these movies better. They both deal with the exact same subject in different ways. Whereas Wes Craven made a fun comic book, horror movie, Bernard Rose makes a thoughtful, scary psychological thriller with slasher elements. So
one of the notes that I have, it's kind of towards the end, but this was a very artsy horror movie.
Yeah. It's what the term that they like to use now is elevated horror, like an A24 production. Yeah, it definitely would have fallen in that line, because it's definitely not a slasher for slasher's sake, which is what the sequels devolve into, unfortunately. But this is a very thoughtful, psychologically driven horror movie, and but we also get the classic tropes of a slasher movie. I mean, it delivers the goods as well, and the scares and the fun. The opening scene is one of my favorites, because first of all, so it's them telling the urban legend motif.
Yep.
And the whole movie's about the power of urban legends and the power of fear to especially oppress people. And so they're telling this story that they heard about this person, and we get this babysitter story. And the best part about this story is that the bad boy that comes in is fucking Ted Raimi.
Yes.
Yeah, as soon as he closed the door, I was like, damn it.
Lydia, when you think of bad boys, don't you immediately think of Ted Raimi?
Yes.
I mean, I think of the Fonz, but
Ted Raimi gives the Fonz a run for his money.
Oh yeah, he is definitely the epitome of cool. And the best part is he opens the door and he's like making that Ted Raimi cocky face, and I was like, fucking Ted Raimi. Almost took me out of the moment. I was like, oh God, I love it.
Yes, it took me out of the moment too.
And that's only because, in hindsight, we know who Ted Raimi is.
Yes.
So
he did a great job.
Yeah, but it's brilliant. As soon as I saw it, I was like, man, I wish Ted Raimi was the rest of this movie. Just kind of hanging around.
Yes.
So he is the bad boy. This babysitter is dating somebody else. And Ted Raimi shows up on his motorcycle in his leather jacket to sweep her out like he just arrived from Grease 2.
And now looking back in retrospect, that story really parallels kind of the trope of the cheating husband.
Correct, it does. So she leads him into the bathroom, and for some reason, because I don't know about you guys, but whenever I'm in the mood and we're ready to, I'm ready to start getting sexy, I take my lover into the bathroom and I look in the mirror and I recite Bloody Mary or Candyman.
Yes.
Yeah, but you're not a girl. All girls do that.
Everybody Lydia, is this true?
It's a girl. It's a girl thing.
It's a girl thing.
Yeah, that explains it. I mean, I was wondering why Sarah kept pulling me, saying, "Hey, why don't you come in here and join me in the bathroom?" And no thanks.
And you're like, "Oh, that's gross."
Yeah, no thanks. You can poop on your own time.
Yeah.
She never listens, guys. It's fine.
One of these days, she's gonna be so mad.
She's gonna listen to this episode and be like, "Jamie, why were you telling people that they poop all the time?" Which is poop actually factors into the story a little bit later, so we'll get into that.
If you told her to go into the bathroom and say Candyman, she probably wouldn't do it.
I
Oh, she
100%,
probably wouldn't.
100% agree. She would not do it. She would be like, fuck you. No, not going to do it. So
her.
she does it. She does it 4 times. Ted Raimi does it. Gets to 4 times, and then they quit. And she's like, most people only get to 3. And then she's like, not here, downstairs. Then she looks in the mirror and says it the 3rd time. And he appears behind her. But the best part of this scene is the shot of Ted sitting on the couch drinking his beer, and he's like laughing to us. Totally gonna get some. And then he sees the blood. He hears the blood curdling scream and sees the blood dripping. And you find out that the baby died and she died. Bobby ran out, but his hair turned white from fear. But we never get to see that. I kind of wish we get to see white hair Ted Raimi running around. But what are you going to do? So a very effective opening scene, I feel like.
Oh, yeah, definitely lays the groundwork for what's to come.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sure. In more ways than one.
So then we find out why we're being told this story, which is we meet our main character, Helen. And Helen is doing a thesis on urban legends. And this Candyman one is one of the urban legends that she just recently heard. So she hears about this idea of the Candyman. And she has she goes and meets her husband at the university, because that's where he works. He's a husband. He's a professor at the university. And his name is Trevor.
And Trevor is a piece of garbage.
Trevor is a piece of garbage, played by the great Xander Berkeley, who is an extraordinary actor when it comes to playing garbage.
He sets, like, I even made a note of this. You can tell he's a douchebag from the beginning. Like, right from the beginning.
Yeah, there's no ambiguity to his douchiness. Everybody sees it, except Helen. Yeah. Because, I just met the guy, and I was like, oh, Helen, you're too good for him, honey. Come on, beat it. If I was alive in the 90s, I would have thrown my hat in that ring.
You were alive in the 90s.
Yeah, but I was like 7.
You can't put an age on love.
Oh, my God. This episode's going to get demonetized.
We're just going to cut that out.
Put an age on love.
We'll cut that out, Derek. Don't worry.
Yeah, don't worry. We won't let everybody know how creepy you are all the time.
Hey. My wife's in her 30s. So am I. So
Derek, of course, as we all know, is 87. So, what are you going to do? So, she sees him flirt. Basically, he's given a lecture over urban legends. And he's talking about crocodiles in the sewer, that whole story, and about how urban legends spread. The problem with that is she's writing her thesis on it, and she asked him to, hey, don't do your lesson over urban legends until after I do my thesis to turn it in. And of course, he's like, well, I have a curriculum I have to follow, which doesn't seem like he does. I think he's just a toolbox.
Yeah, his curriculum was like, you have to do urban legends right now. Don't tell your wife about it.
Yeah. And of course, she also sees him flirting with a female student, which of course he plays off like he's not and whatever. And she's more pissed off about the urban legends thing than the other thing, because she's like, oh, I trust my husband. He would never do something so terrible.
Yeah.
Even though I literally just met the guy and I'm like, oh, he's definitely boning that student. Like, there's no question about it.
Or at least wants to.
Yeah, he's definitely laying the groundwork, if nothing else. And then, so then we get this scene of Helen, like, dictating her Candyman story. And she's listening to it and dictating it down, transcribing it. And one of the custodial staff of the university overhears her and says, oh, you're talking about the Candyman. And she tells her about her friend who knows somebody who died by the Candyman in Cabrini Green. So they bring them to Cabrini Green. So they bring in the woman who tells the story about a a woman who was mutilated by a hook, and the baby was mutilated by a hook. And the police didn't do anything about it because they couldn't find the culprits, and that he came from the mirror and all this stuff. So this intrigues Helen. So she starts doing some research on Cabrini Green.
Mm-hmm.
And she's doing this with her partner, who's helping her write the thesis, Bernadette, whose name, of course, her nickname is Bernie, which I think is actually named after Bernard Rose, the writer and director of this movie. I think that's his surrogate character, is Bernie. And so she goes over to Helen's house, and they are, because Helen has discovered that the apartment that they live on currently used to be a part of the projects and was gentrified. And now the rent is much more, and the place got rebuilt, but they just plastered over certain things. And that you can, the medicine cabinets, you could literally pull out and go to the other apartment.
Yeah, I'd totally be on the phone with whoever, because it's a condominium. I'd be like, hey, you guys are fixing that shit right now.
Yeah. We gotta not have that be a thing.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Which, this really goes back to, and I don't want to hark on it too much, but like the systemic way that society like builds those walls between communities. You know what I'm saying?
Well,
she said that they literally built a transit system to cut the two off to create a barrier.
Correct.
Between the projects, and then they reclaimed, in a way, the building that she is in.
Correct. Yeah. And while this scene was going on, I also noted in my notes, nice apartment, because that apartment is gigantically huge and super nice. I was like, God dang, they really did a good job when they changed it from the projects. I'll tell you that.
Right.
It has this great big view of the city when she opens the windows. So they, of course, go into the bathroom when they're searching this, and they decide to say Candyman 5 times in the mirror. Except Bernadette only says it 4 times, and Helen says it the 5th. And she goes to sleep. And is startled by her lovely husband, Trevor, at like 3 in the morning, who just stumbles in.
He was at the office working hard.
Yeah, he was working hard at the office, I'm sure.
Her reaction to him startling her too got me.
Yeah.
Trevor.
Trevor, what time is it? It's late and I'm smashed. I'm like, oh, you drink a lot at the office? Like,
yeah.
I was at a party with some kids.
What a dill hole. So then, based off this knowledge that she just got, her and Bernadette decide to go and visit Cabrini Green. And while they're there, they meet.
It looks like, on my screen, it looked like you two were like holding hands.
Oh, did it?
You both leaned over. Hey, what are you guys doing up there?
Well, Hey, I got to tell you, because I think that we might have skipped over
Derek,
this,
stop!
It's so... It's such a prevalent part of this movie, and for someone who hates people who smoke, I don't hate the people who smoke, I hate the act of smoking. Dude, this movie had so much smoking in it.
So much.
Cigarettes.
The 90s,
every
man.
scene. I felt like they were in a bar.
Well, it's like they were kind
ridiculous.
of moving on some film noir tropes as well, because there's certain scenes that are lit very film noir.
Right. And remember when you could just like go into restaurants and smoke cigarettes?
Yeah, it was a terrible time. It was the Wild West.
It was.
I remember going to a restaurant. This is a little bit off topic, but I remember going to a restaurant with mom and dad. Like, let's say we go to, like, I don't know, Golden Corral or something. And I remember they would ask us, smoking or non-smoking section?
Yeah.
And it'd be like, non-smoking, please. And then
like,
we'd sit in the non-smoking section. But then, like, 2 tables down is where the smoking section starts. So it's like, oh, thanks for doing us that solid. Smoke dissipates through the air, guys. It's not like there's a force field that it just hits and falls off. You used to be able to smoke on airplanes.
How crazy is that? A pressurized cabin full of oxygen.
You also used to. I mean, you just mentioned bars, and I played in a band for 10 years, and for those 10 years, smoking was allowed for about 7 of them. So every time from a gig, I'd come home and just reek of cigarette smoke. You remember those days, Derek?
100%, yeah.
Yeah, we'd come home and, I'd be smelling like cigarette smoke, and you hate it, but you'd be there to support us. So
that's still a thing.
Is it?
Oh yeah,
that's crazy.
Like the bar that you played at, definitely
they still allow
smoking there. Yes.
Isn't it illegal? I think it's against Indiana's.
Not in certain bars, I think, because the other bar that we played at.
I wonder if
I just think the owner just is doing it.
Yeah, if they don't serve food, maybe that's
maybe I don't know.
So I since we're on a little tangent here about smoking, I used to sometimes go to bingo with my mom and my grandma. Right, dude, I could never last an entire session because everyone in there was super old and they smoked, and like 2 hours in the 3-hour session, I would couldn't breathe. I'd have to I'm gonna leave, so I'd give my bingo packets to my mom.
What the best part is you were actually playing bingo. You just weren't there to visit. You were like, no, I'm going to try to win some money while I'm here.
Well, my mom used to buy my bingo packet for me. She was like the bingo Terminator, dude. She'd be watching my card and hers and my grandma's. She'd be like, pop, 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 pop.
That's hard.
It is, yeah.
So anyway, back to Candyman. From we went on our anti-smoking tirade, apparently.
Causes cancer. It's bad for you. Don't do it. Tied it in a bow.
Tie it up. They go to Cabrini Green, and they meet Anne Marie, who is a resident of Cabrini Green and has a young son. And she befriends them and lets them come in and tells them the story of the Candyman and how the Candyman murdered the woman, and she's afraid. She's afraid of what's out there in the walls. And the actress that performs that part does an amazing job, I feel like. I think the performances across the board in this movie are great. But I want to single her out because she did awesome in that scene. And I was like, I believe that woman is terrified for her son and really just wants to get out of here. So we jump from Cabrini Green to one of my favorite scenes of the whole movie, which is the dinner party scene. They're sitting at a table, and we get introduced to long-haired professor. Long-haired professor.
Appropriate. If you're in that restaurant, you're looking over at that table and be like, man, that table's full of some pompous.
Yeah. You look at that guy, you're like, he's full of himself, probably just became dungeon master. He's ready to go.
Yeah, no kidding. That guy was weird, huh?
Yeah, he's real weird, and he's apparently
he talks like that.
Yeah, I know.
Like his voice is really his look and the voice together is what makes it like you don't want to hang out with that guy. Yeah.
He's like such a pompous asshole. Like apparently he's a professor of folklore. I mean, he's like, you think you know more about folklore than moi?
Yeah.
At one point, when she tells him about, what she's doing, he was like, I wrote a paper on that 10 years ago.
Yeah, the best part is Helen hates this guy. You can tell. And she's like, we're going to bury you. And he's like, bury me? I wrote a paper on it. Do you know the story of the Candyman? How can you bury me when you don't even know it? So this is one of my favorite scenes.
Are you sure you didn't play this?
I was actually, guys, my acting debut was that guy. I just put on a wig and was like, the Candyman, you say? We're going to film a skit with me having long hair, and I'm going to do that. We're going to recreate that scene. Lydia, you get to play Helen. You get to, sit there And Derek, you get to play Trevor because, I mean, you just remind me of him.
Oh, I definitely exude Trevor vibes.
Yeah, perfect. You got it. You nailing it, Lydia.
I feel like her eyes are so big.
Yeah. So this scene's one of my favorites in the movie because we get a backstory of the Candyman. And the way this is shot, I was talking to Derek about this earlier today. The way this is shot is one of my favorite scenes in most movies because an average way to shoot this scene would be to shoot it as a master and then overs, right? And so you'd have your coverage of our guy telling it and Helen listening, her reactions. And they might have shot it that way. But the way they decided to edit it and the take they took is we start on Professor Pompous telling his story about the Candyman. And then we cut to Helen. And we're kind of at like I'd say a medium shot. And as he's telling the story, we just slowly push in on Helen. And we just watch her with her cigarette. And we see her reaction to each part of the story. And the way she's lit, her eyes are lit, are bright, and the rest of her face is not dark, but it's darker. And it's this beautiful image. And they play it out with him talking, and we just hear sound effects of the story. So another way to tell this story would be to actually show the flashbacks, right? You have the professor say, you didn't know the story of Daniel, and then he starts to tell it, and then we cut back to the flashbacks, and we see it happen. But for whatever gut reason, Bernard Rose decided to cut it this way. He cut it in this so the focus remains on Helen because she is our focus, and she's Candyman's way into this world again. And I just think it's awesome. Do you guys like that scene as much as I do?
No, I
apparently not.
Definitely took note of that scene because it was a very emphasized perspective to have taken, and I think it was the right choice. And I'd be interested to see what kind of other footage they might have had, or like even a storyboard of where they were going to go with that, and then that decision that they made. Although I will say that I think that it was, in my opinion, I don't think that she was his way back here.
Well, she's his desire. In the rest,
she is his desire because it almost is kind of like a reincarnation type thing.
Correct.
And it seemed as if he only targeted her when she started
put a stop to him.
Disprove him, right?
Yes.
Because at that point, I mean, people feared the Candyman. But then, and we're going to transition here in a couple of minutes to somebody taking that name, which I'm sure he was all about because that person helped kind of, amplify that fear because it was a tangible person that people could see. But yeah, and I really like the way the movie ended. We'll get there, but yeah, it was a really great scene.
Lydia?
Yeah, I like that scene too.
I wrote in my notes, long hair professor is deadly, by the way, in case that didn't come across about
200%.
Much of a weirdo that guy was.
Yeah.
So Helen decides it's a good idea to go back to Cabrini Green because now she's pissed off because of old boy telling her, how do you expect to be me? So she goes back and by herself this time. And she encounters a young boy, Jake. And she basically does the trick that I used to do with my brother. She uses reverse psychology on him.
Mm-hmm.
So, when my brother was young and we say we wanted him to go put his toys back, we'd say, Zachary, you better not go put that toy in the toy box. Don't you do it, Zachary, you better not. And then he'd go do it. So she uses the reverse psychology on him by saying, oh, well, I guess you're just too afraid. If you weren't afraid, you'd be able, I'm going to do it because I'm not afraid. and manipulates this young child into showing her where the Candyman is.
Real quick, there's a scene that I think we might have missed. It's either then or it's around this time, where she goes in and she's taking the pictures, and she goes through that wall.
That was earlier.
And on the other side of that wall, when she comes out, it reveals that it is the mouth of the Candyman.
The mouth of the Candyman, right.
That was such a great shot.
That is a great shot. I completely skipped that. Yeah, she crawls through the mirror.
Yeah, the graffiti.
And finds the graffiti of the Candyman.
I know. Isn't there like a bag of candy with razor blades?
There's a bag of candy with razor blades. She cuts herself on it. She runs out of film. But every time she looks at the picture of the Candyman, she like freaks out a little bit. Like she kind of shakes and like just has kind of like feels nauseous or what have you.
Yeah, and there's an intercut frame in what we're leading up to now that we've met the young kid of of his face. I mean, it's real quick.
Yeah. So she decides to go to. He leads her to this Portal John because he tells her the story about this small little toilet. Basically, this public restroom looks.
Yeah, it was a young kid.
Yeah, so he tells her the story about how a young kid goes into the restroom and he starts screaming because the Candyman castrated him with his hook. And the big tough guy runs in and sees him laying on the floor covered in blood, holding himself. So
did you catch the what that kid says after he was like cut his stuff off?
Yeah, he said worse
Can't
off
fix that, better off dead.
Yeah, better off dead.
I beg to differ, but
so
he probably heard that from someone,
Yeah,
I'm sure
definitely.
Like so most kids, the things kids say.
Yeah. So they go into the restroom, and inside this restroom is the most disgusting restroom I've ever seen. Remember earlier when I promised you guys that we talk about poop? There's poop all over this bathroom.
Oh,
literally.
Yeah. It's a real shitty situation.
Yeah, like it's just the writing is all in poop. There's like just blood and poop smeared everywhere, and she like keeps opening the stalls and almost puking, which I would have been doing anyway. But then they get to like the last one, and it's all like written. There's poop written all over it. And I was thinking to myself as she was there, I was like, please kick that door open. Don't use your hand. Just don't do it. She does, and she opens the toilet to find a swarm of bees in the toilet. Because the kid, of course, said that his Stang was floating in the toilet. We see bees instead. So which
harkens back to the story.
Yes, the story of the Candyman, which is that he fell in love with this beautiful white woman, and once the wealthy family found out, they beat him, they cut off his arm, and then they covered him in honey so he would be stung to death by bees.
Yeah, which it wasn't even that he was wealthy. From the story, I would take he was well educated.
No, yes, but the family
more or less
it was a racial thing, but the wealthy white family is the one that had him murdered.
They are, but I would imagine because his dad, I think if I remember the story correctly, his dad like invented something to help with like shoemaking. So they were probably wealthy themselves, or as wealthy as you could be.
Yeah,
being black in that area.
Yeah, but that didn't matter.
No, it was racially motivated.
So, she sees the Candyman for the first time, which is this dude dressed in a leather jacket holding a hook, and he says,
does resemble him.
Do you guys remember the line that he says to her?
Oh yeah, I do. I hear you looking for Candyman, bee lady.
Okay. We're each going to say this line like we said in another episode. So we're each going to do our best. Like we're going to act like we're the lineup, okay? So, Derek, you go first. You'll go last. I'll go first. So I heard you're looking for the Candyman, bitch.
So I heard you're looking for Candyman, bitch.
Derek, your turn.
I just said it.
Say it.
Like they would have,
Yes.
or like I would have.
No, like they would have.
All right, here you go. I hear you're looking for Candyman, bitch.
It's number 3. It's
Nailed
number
it.
3.
Nailed it. It's definitely him.
By the way, I switched to the bottle.
I noticed. I've noticed. So he knocks her out with the hook, smacks her, and gives her a gnarly ass black eye. Like,
Yeah,
this
he
black
does.
guy is no joke. The kid finds her and calls the police, and she's saved. And then there's the lineup, and she fingers out the guy who did it, and he's arrested. And the detective's like, we knew about him, we've been trying to get him, but nobody would cooperate, but you will, and so we nailed this guy. And she talks to the young boy, Jake, again, and he's like, I thought you said it was going to be our secret. Now the Candyman's going to get me. And she's like, the Candyman's not real. He's just a mean person that does mean things to people. So,
Yep. So 2 things. At first, I thought that kid set her up. Now, obviously, after everything went down, he realized that he didn't, but I thought he set her up. And then 2, this is that point in the movie where, like, she starts to cast that disbelief. Essentially, he only exists because people believe that he exists. Power resides where people believe power resides, type thing.
exactly. And once she starts to call into question that, because the real Candyman, this real flesh and blood person, has been arrested, and they say, well, this is the guy who's responsible for these crimes, the community becomes less afraid of the Candyman. And the Candyman himself can't have that. So after some time, of course, Trevor comes. She makes dinner for Trevor, and he's super late getting home. Obviously, just got done
Working late.
working something. And
Studying for those exams.
and
I think it
she's
was
like
anatomy.
she's so sweet and like doting for him, makes him this meal and everything. And first of all, guys, I'm gonna go off on a little side note here. Who the fuck is Trevor? Like, does he not realize how good he has it? Like, he is batting way out of his league, in my opinion.
And I mean, he realizes later.
Yes, he does.
He does.
I mean, Lydia, do you think Trevor has the game at all?
No.
He does. My opinion, I'm not a lady. I have no idea. But I think his game is his, because he does have a kind of a pompous way about him, but he does have confidence. And I mean, when he is the up in front and he's giving a lecture, you can tell that he thinks he's the shit.
Yeah, but he also looks like Trevor.
Now, he does look like Trevor. I'm not going to disagree with you, but I'm just saying. I've seen some mismatched people in the world.
So, so do you think Professor Longhair is dating like, like Courtney Cox or something?
There's no coming back from that hair. At least Trevor doesn't have any to fuck it up.
That's true. Trevor has way less hair. If you put white makeup on him, his widow's peak, he could be Dracula. I wrote at this point that Trevor sucks again. So
I wrote that twice also.
Yes. So she's in a parking lot of the school. She gets the Bernadette gives her the microfilm of the pictures that she took. And she's in the parking garage about to go home when she has her first encounter with the Candyman. And
question.
Yes.
How many horror movies can you name where like the big bad doesn't show up until like 2/3 of the movie is over.
It's about half. It's about half, less than half through the movie.
Well, then through the rest of the movie, it has like maybe a total of like 10 minutes.
It's kind of most older horror movies, really. Like, I mean, if you think about it, you know, like, what's a good example? Nightmare on Elm Street, you see Freddy right at the beginning, but Freddy is also sprinkled sparingly throughout the movie.
He is sprinkled. You're correct.
Robert Englund has probably about 10 to 12 minutes of screen time in that first movie. So it's a great, but Tony Todd's performance is so powerful that you feel like he's in the entire thing.
Yeah.
You could not have had his voice, dude. You could not have had a better Candyman.
No. I wrote in my notes.
Made for that role.
I wrote in my notes, Tony Todd fucking rules.
Because he was perfect.
As soon as he comes on screen and he's like, Helen, you're like, oh.
Yeah. And all they really had to do was like amplify it, or like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, just put like a little reverb on it so it reverberates. Because his voice is already that deep. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And he looks so cool. He just looks cool. And his hook looks really good because it has like nails in it and stuff holding it together.
Until it's severed, and because the last guy was holding the hook.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, you know, he's, of course, like starts delivering his famous monologues of, I am the whispers in the street, you know, I am the shadows.
Did anybody have a, did anybody go back to the Darkwing Duck days?
I was
am
thinking,
the terror that flaps in the night.
I was thinking like, I'm Batman.
Oh my gosh.
But so, yeah, he appears, and what a great first scene for him, right? I mean, she starts to kind of go in and out of consciousness as he's talking to her. And he's like, come to me, Ellen. Be my victim. Be my victim. And you're like, oh my God, this guy.
Yeah, and so this is, if you're watching it for the first time, I feel like this is where you would have a couple of questions. I did, like, oh, do you have to, like, give yourself to him to be your victim? But that's not how it really kind of played out in the urban legends type thing. So it was an interesting choice that they took with her, but you kind of see that in the end when it alludes to who she kind of is.
Well, what's great about the introduction of the Candyman is this following scene, because what it sets up is the Candyman really an urban legend, or is she just going crazy? Because after she falls asleep, she wakes up in the bathroom in a pool of blood. And she doesn't know what's going on. It's not her blood. She's checking. She opens the door and sees the severed head of a dog, which is terrible, by the way. That's always the worst. Kill all the humans you want in horror movies, guys, but leave animals alone.
Yeah.
Yeah, and don't kill snakes.
No, definitely don't kill snakes for real. We'll talk about that.
Don't kill anything for real. But also,
Yeah.
I just wanted to point out that the last movie also had a Rottweiler that got murdered.
These movies have very parallel. Yeah. Except, you know, when Prince dies in People Under the Stairs, you don't really see it. It's not graphic, and he's fine. You know the dog actor is fine. This one, you know the dog actor is fine too. But they have its fucking chopped off head laying on the floor.
I hate
and you're
that.
like, I don't like that, man. Don't like that at all. So she picks up the meat cleaver because she's like, something's going down here. Walks in and sees Anne-Marie crying over the bloody crib of her missing child. And she, of course, rightfully assumes that this woman just killed her child and killed her dog. Mm. She's in her apartment somehow holding a meat cleaver. And so she tries to attack her, and Helen fights her off and chops her arm. And then the police come in and arrest Helen, of course. And she's so confused. She's like, give me the detective. And then he's like, you're under arrest. You understand me? And she's like, I don't understand. What do you mean? You know, do you understand me? Yeah, I understand. Because the kid's missing. They don't know where it is. They're like, where's the kid? And there's this one great cop that says, you're sick. To her as this speech is going on. So
I don't know how you don't. I mean, if you're a detective, and it's established that they have a relationship,
mm-hmm.
right? how you're not more like trying to understand what the motive was. Like, Helen, why did you do it? Asking more probing questions than you're going down.
Yeah, and it seems like it's a part of the trope for the movie to work. Because, yes, it seems that way. Like, as I was watching it, that's all I could think of was, if I were in this situation, what would I do? Well, I'd say, check for my DNA. You don't see it anywhere. I attacked her because she attacked me. I've never been in trouble before in my life. Why would I just randomly come to this woman's house and steal this? These pieces aren't adding up. But she's also starting to kind of have a psychotic break at this exact same time as well.
She is.
So she makes her phone call to Trevor. And it's 3 a.m.
Son of a bitch.
And Trevor doesn't answer the phone.
Yeah.
And we see a shot. He's not even in bed. He's not even there. So eventually Trevor comes and bails her out. She asks him, where were you last night when I called? I was sound asleep, honey. I just didn't hear the phone ring. And, you know, we're obviously like, you lying sack of crap. So they go back to the apartment, and she has this, they have a dialogue, and Trevor leaves again. So they have a dialogue with their lawyer, and they discuss how they're going to move forward. And then she goes to get in, she's in the bathtub, and Trevor tells her, you know, I've got to run and get some stuff from the office. I'll be back. He leaves, so she's home by herself, and she decides to check out the microfilm. So as she's looking at this microfilm, she realizes that in one of the shots that she took, she could see the Candyman in the mirror. And he's there. It creeps her out. So once she does that, she starts to hear his voice again and blacks out. Or she gets a call from her, from Bernadette. And she falls. And Bernadette's at the door trying to get in. And she wakes up and she's on the floor. She has a cut on her neck. And she's holding a knife. She can't move. She's trying to come to her wits. Bernadette breaks in to see what's going on, and she encounters the Candyman. And we get an off-screen kill. And I was at first disappointed with this. Like, of course, off-screen kill. But then in the next shot, once the police come in, she goes into the living room, and when she comes to, realizes that she's handcuffed. She comes to and goes in the living room and sees Bernadette gutted on the living room floor. What do you think of that effect, Lydia?
It looked pretty creepy. Like her face. I was really looking at her face more than anything because it was so pale and drained.
Yeah.
And scary.
What do you think, Derek?
You know, I don't know how someone who did it would have reacted, but just like her reaction of seeing that, like if I were a cop, if I were someone, I would at least take note, like, oh, she genuinely seems shocked and like saddened that her friend just died and taken aback.
I'm assuming at this point they think that she's disassociating, that she is,
and that very well could be
that she's like has a some kind of psychological ailment.
Well, I mean, they send her to a psych ward and
so
sedate her for a month.
She ends up at a psych ward for a month. The following scene, there's a great scene. The first night she's there, she's handcuffed on the bed, and the Candyman comes down and hovers over top of her.
Yeah.
What do you guys think of that scene?
Great scene.
So scary. I love the fact that the way he's hovering and he's like taunting her. And then when the cops come in, he lowers underneath the bed. And then she's like, he's under the bed. He's under the bed. And they inject her. And then the next thing she knows, a month has passed.
Yeah. By the way, you could tell like when the nurse stuck the needle in her arm.
Yeah, I saw it too.
It was totally.
Yeah, like a retractable.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. A retractable needle.
Yeah, it was a great effect. And it was a great, like, I could liken it to a game of chess. Right? Like, that is him hovering over her, being like, I almost have you in checkmate. Like you're
because he's telling her, I'm going to take everything from you. You might as well just give up now. I'm going to take everything from you. You need to be my victim. And so she still thinks that she has Trevor at this point. So she wakes up, a month has passed, and she gets hauled in to go see the doctor, Dr. Burke. Of course, when she said it was Dr. Burke, I thought it was going to be, excuse me, I thought it was going to be Tom Selleck from Friends. Dr. Richard Burke? So we're introduced to this Dr. Burke guy, and he informs us that she's been there a month, shows us the video of her encounter and sees that she's yelling at nothing. And she's like, this can't be true. None of this makes sense, you know. She's like, I want to talk to my attorney. He said, I'm working for your attorney. We're trying to prove that you're crazy so you can't stand trial, essentially. And she's like, I didn't do it. It was him. I'm not capable of that. She's like, it was him, and I can prove it. I can summon him. So she looks in the mirror, says Candyman 5 times. And then
first off, maybe it's because she was on meds, but I'd be like, hey, you need to call like 10 people into this room.
Yeah, well, I don't think she's thinking clearly at all. And so she does it. Says the Candyman 5 times, and then blood comes from his mouth. The next thing you know, he's getting like hooked from behind by the Candyman. And he goes and undoes her cuffs, her straps, because that's what I was thinking is, if she stays strapped up, there's going to be no way for her to have done this. She could prove that somebody else didn't do it, but he removes her straps. So then she could have done it. She's free. Even though what weapon did she use to gut this guy from behind? Who knows? But then he says, you know, come to me or whatever. And
come to me.
And then freaking
says, come to me or whatever.
Or whatever he says. He says some kind of flowery Candyman bullshit. Like, your blood of the victims flows freely through the seas. Some kind of eloquent Tony Todd Candyman bullshit. And then he flies out of the window. Which also, if you look closely, you can see the harness dragging him out of the window.
Yeah,
oh, I'm sure, yeah.
Yeah. But it's such a great effect. Such a great effect of him just flying out of the window backwards.
It's very unexpected.
Yeah. You're just kind of like, you know, what's he going to do now? Oh, there he's gone.
Especially since he's like supposed to be like a ghost, right?
Yeah.
He's not a very ghosty ghost.
Yeah, he's kind of, his mythology is kind of wonky.
Well, and like the next scene that you see him in, he's like fucking taking a nap.
Yeah, and he's also like a flesh and blood spirit a little bit too by the end of the movie.
Yeah.
So she escapes out of the window and arrives at the apartment. Oh, this scene. What do you guys think of the scene where Helen arrives back at the apartment?
I love that scene so much.
So do I, but I'm also I get very angry at it.
Yes.
You know what I took away from that was when Trevor starts to enter the room and he assumes that she hurt herself, and he like treats her like a child. He's like, "Oh, did you get a little wooby booby boo?" And you're like, "What is she, 5?"
Like, God, he is such a jerk.
Yeah, the way you said that reminds me of like the way that Toulon raises the puppets from Puppet Master.
May or may not be the same language.
Maybe they're related. So yeah, like she arrives in to see this woman painting her house this horrible pink color, painting her apartment this terrible pink color, and she's like, you know, basically like, what the fuck are you doing in my house?
Yeah.
And the girl's reaction is great. She's like, starts immediately crying.
Dude, she freaks out.
Yeah. And
She
Trevor
does.
comes.
Actually, it's a really great, and I feel like a kind of a natural reaction that she would have had.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I mean, if you can
she's
put
very
yourself
well
in
known.
her shoes, besides her being, you know, a piece of crap that was cheating with the
Home
professor.
wrecking.
Yeah, if she wasn't home wrecking, you can imagine, this woman has been accused of these grisly murders.
Yeah.
And is standing right in front of you.
Yes.
And you know she's going to be pissed because you're painting her house and boinking her husband.
Yeah.
So yeah,
and pink, no less.
Yeah, her reaction is brilliant. And I just love the way she kind of lays it. Trevor, I wrote in the notes right here, Trevor is a coward fuck rag. That was my actual note.
Very appropriate.
Because he's all like, Helen, maybe we need to call the hospital. She's like, nobody's calling anything. Oh.
Yeah. I love her in that scene. She is so scary. She's scarier than any fucking boogeyman, Candyman, whatever. She's the scariest because she is like, she could probably kill him at that point.
Yeah, she's so angry. And the best part though is how she keeps her anger in check, except for she slowly goes up and pulls the drop cloth off the table. And then she's like, I hate this color scheme, and throws the paint bucket against the wall.
Yes.
Yep.
And then she's like, call him. Holds the phone up, call him. And she sits down and she's like, what happened? What's going on? I didn't kill anybody. And then Trevor starts to inch towards the phone and she looks up at him and he's like, oh. Goes back again. And she just walks out and he immediately goes over to the phone. Oh. And so she knows what she's got to do now. She realizes that she has lost everything. She tells him, you were all I had left.
Yep.
And once she lost that connection, she goes to the river and realizes what she has to do. Realizes that baby's life's in danger and it's her life for the baby. And she's going to give her life for that baby.
So real quick, I want to touch on the baby. Because this baby's been missing for over a month.
Yeah.
Right? So there's a scene in this movie where the Candyman is feeding the baby.
Mm-hmm.
What one would probably assume is his blood. That's what I assumed. Could just be candy that he put on his finger. Which, after we get done with this movie and we touch on, what you kind of discovered today, it's going to make more sense.
Yeah. I just assumed that Candyman has just been grabbing some Gerbers. Goes down to the local Aldi.
It's an option.
Goes down to Aldi, grabs a big 12-pack of the Gerbers, and he's just like, in between killings, he's like, it's time. I must feed this baby, so Helen will trade her life for me.
Yeah.
Here comes the airplane.
No wonder he was taking a nap, man. He's been taking care of a baby.
Yeah, he's been taking care. He's like, the baby's asleep. This is my only time to nap.
These are true statements.
So she arrives at the Candyman's lair and finds him, like you just alluded to, asleep on the altar. Like he's like legit snoring. She finds the hook from the fake Candyman. And goes and hooks him as he wakes up, and he just pulls it out, and there's this great splurt of blood.
Mm-hmm.
Like just nonchalantly, just this splurt of blood. And then he walks up, to her and, says, will you be my victim? And she accepts, and he carries her like the bride of Frankenstein. Such this beautiful Gothic shot of him carrying her to the altar. And she's like, they're talking, they're having dialogue as this is going on. And she's like, he's like, are you afraid? And she's like, yeah. And he's like, what are you afraid of? The pain or what comes after? Both. And he says, I can promise you the pain will be exquisite, but you don't have to worry about after. We'll be together. And he lays her down on this altar and he starts putting his hook up her dress. And I'm like, oh, I'm getting a little uncomfortable with this. Whoa there, Candyman. I don't think she gave you permission for that.
Yeah, chill out with that hook, bro.
Yeah. I know you like cutting off pee-pees. There's none down there. He's like, oh, it appears my work is done.
Now, is it before or after she gives in to him that she realizes that, she It is, man, I don't want to
It's
say like
after.
a reincarnation.
Yes,
It's after. Okay, we're
it's
getting
after.
there.
Yeah, so she passes out. When she wakes up, Candyman is gone, and the baby is gone. And she sees the murals on the wall, and that's when she sees what you just were talking about, a mural of a woman that looks like her. And she realizes that she may be the reincarnation of his love.
Yeah.
And she walks out of the room, and she hears the baby crying in this furniture pile. It's like a pile. I guess it's a fire pile. I don't know if these are
she
like...
even makes a reference to it.
Yeah, they make a reference to it earlier in the movie, right?
Yeah, when she's walking with the little kid. Oh, are you guys building a bonfire? Yeah,
right.
It's for the party.
For the party, right. That's why it's there.
Yeah, I wonder what kind of party they're going to throw.
A furniture party, it looks like. This IKEA is shit! And so she crawls into this labyrinth, like, apparently this, by the way, this pile has like mazes through it that she can just kind of chill out in. And Candyman's like chilling in like what I would consider the lobby of this.
The lobby.
The lobby.
I would call it the conference room.
Yeah. And so Candyman's chilling there, and she arrives and saves tries to get the baby, and Candyman grabs her, and as she's going in, she has the hook, and Jake sees the hook and thinks it's the Candyman. So he goes and tells everybody, and they start throwing gas on this. They're going to light it on fire to kill the Candyman once and for all. And they light it on fire. And Candyman's like, this is going to be great. We're all going to die together. We can live forever together, blah, blah, blah. And she can't let that happen. She can't let this baby die. And she needs to end the Candyman's reign. So she grabs a piece of wood and stabs him right in the chest, which earlier, by the way, I forgot to mention, when they were having their moment together, is when we get the introduction of his bees. He opens his chest up, a great effect, and you see all these bees inside this rib cage. And then Tony Todd has live bees in his mouth for the shots of the bees, and he kisses her with the bees. Classic image. Classic image.
Policy.
He had like a cup in his mouth, I think, and the bees were in it. That's how they shot it. But he had the bees all over his face and stuff. That's why they didn't cast you as the Candyman, Derek.
That is no bueno.
So yeah, the bonfire starts, and she uses a piece of firewood, and stabs the Candyman right in his chest with it, and grabs the baby and takes off. And the Candyman starts to burn, and he gets caught on fire, and that's how the Candyman meets his demise, is through this ritualistic burning from the people of Cabrini Green, right? Helen catches on fire too as she's escaping with the baby, and it burns off all of her hair.
That beautiful hair.
I know, I love her hair.
Her hair is great.
Yeah. Burns off her hair, and she saves the baby and manages to get him out. And they put her out and everything. They realize that she saved the baby and that the Candyman was what's responsible. And so she didn't do anything. So they treat her as a hero, and she dies. And so the next scene we see Trevor, his tart in college, and long-haired professor standing at her. Those are the only people that go to her funeral until the people of Cabrini Green show up. The entire complex in a line show up to pay their respects to Helen for helping them defeat the Candyman. And Jake throws the Candyman's severed hook that he found into her grave with her. So then we cut
Great scene, by the way.
Great scene. Full of... so what do you think that scene means?
I think it was a hero's send-off initially. And then you had fucking Trevor who goes and ruins it.
Yeah. No, it was because she did sacrifice herself. But the story that I think how it works is it was a hero send-off. But now she became the myth. The Candyman is no more. Helen is now the myth. She's the urban legend.
I think that she became the myth only because of Trevor.
Well,
is how I took it. Like it was a reborn. Like
it was a
he was reborn
rebirth.
through-
Well, because at the end of the movie, which we'll get to here in a second, after Helen's death, Trevor is sitting in the bathroom feeling sorry for himself because he realized that Helen was great and this woman sucks. She just was good in the sack. And by the way, can I point out this T-shirt that this woman's wearing?
Noticed.
It's
What
like she's not
t-shirt?
wearing a shirt at all.
Yeah, it's like what t-shirt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You like totally just see your boobs through the whole thing. And I was like, I mean, that's a way to walk around the house.
They're at home, casual
Yeah.
wear. I mean, you know.
And so it's intercut with Helen making this like fancy meal and her like throwing meat on the cutting board, just like. And so he's feeling sorry for himself. So he starts saying her name as he's crying in the mirror. Helen. Oh, Helen. Helen. He says it 5 times. And she appears behind him and says, what's the matter, Trevor? Scared. And then guts him with the Candyman's hook.
Yep.
And so he's in the bathtub when she comes in. She hears the yelling, comes in and finds him gutted in the bathtub. Then we cut to the Candyman's altar, which is now a picture of Helen on fire.
Was it her on fire?
It was her with her hair on fire. Yeah.
Yep.
I didn't catch that.
And she's the new myth. And we push in on it as the credits roll. So my interpretation would be she is the new myth.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And that was Candyman. What are your guys' thoughts on Candyman? We'll start with you, Derek. We'll get your pumpkin rating. What do you think of Candyman?
I thought it was definitely well shot. I thought that there was some really great scenes in this movie. I thought they nailed the actors pretty much across the board. I thought they nailed the music. They couldn't have picked a better Candyman, in my opinion. I mean, I really enjoyed this movie.
What's your pumpkin rating for it?
Oh, man. So I'm going to give it a 7.
A 7?
Yeah. 7.
I just had to do that. Because
Yeah,
we
just had to
always
do.
give you a hard
Yeah.
time.
Well, this one's actually not a bad rating. Finally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what I would have changed to make this movie any better. You know, at times I think that the pacing was a little slow. I had a critique about it, but yeah, you know, I thought it was a great movie. I enjoyed it.
Lydia.
Yeah, you had a lot of good points there. I think music was on point, cast was on point, direction was on point. I think for me, I think the story was a little confusing at times. When she goes into the wall and finds like the candy with the razors in it, that really confused me. And then I think they were meaning it that it was the fake Candyman was doing that. And so was it him that actually killed the first girl that was murdered? Because that was kind of confusing to me.
It's ambiguous.
You mean, when you say first girl, do you mean like the first girl in the story that they told at the beginning, or
the story
janitors?
Ruthie Jean.
Ruthie Jean.
Yeah.
She was in the newspaper and everything.
Yeah, it's really ambiguous because it could be either, right? I mean,
yeah.
Because it could be the Candyman actually arriving and slaughtering them, but it could also be the fake Candyman crawling through the mirror like Helen.
Yeah, I think I'm going to give this one a 6 because I do really like this movie, but I think for the story, it could have been a little bit better for me. Just because I feel like Candyman as a myth and a ghost kind of should have not needed to use that kind of like go through, you know, he could just go anywhere he wants to go. He doesn't need to go through the mirrors.
Yeah, but I mean that's his summoning. You have to summon him. That's his myth. Is you have to summon him by calling him through the mirror.
Right. Well, and then that's one thing is like through the mirror itself, but he was going through the wall from another room.
So I think that was
cases,
from the fake Candyman too.
In some cases, he's going.
Well, and I think that was
he's
also
in the mirror, and in other cases, he's like somewhere else. Like it's just some of the story just doesn't add up.
They definitely could have been more clear on that, and they could have been more clear of like, you know, what was this imposter and what was not this imposter, because the mirror thing makes logical sense, especially if you're trying to disprove this myth. But it also makes sense that the fake Candyman, how he would have committed some of these murders, you know, to seem like the Candyman.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I definitely see where that would be confusing.
Yeah, it's the story's a little maybe unclear, I guess. There's some sloppiness maybe to some things. But I really enjoyed this movie. I think the story itself is good. I think that the pacing is, you said it's slow. I think it's deliberately slow. I think I think the pacing is perfect for this style of movie because it's a movie that draws you in. It's a movie that starts to play with your mind and your emotions. I like the music's great. Tony Todd is perfect. He is the Candyman. And I really love Virginia Madsen as Helen in this. I think she's phenomenal in this movie.
Oh yeah.
Couldn't have picked a better heroine either. She's awesome in this movie. I'm going to give Candyman a 7 as well. If there was a little more consistency with certain things, I would have given it an 8 or 9. But I love the vibe of it. I love the class warfare that it's talking about and the racial warfare that it's talking about. It's very similar to People Under the Stairs in that way. People Under the Stairs is a more fun watch because it's goofy and crazy. This is a more serious take on that. Same kind of themes. Yeah, so I really enjoy Candyman. Compared to its sequels, it is a masterpiece of horror. Because those sequels are awful. So, before we get into the next bit of the show, we know that there's a new Candyman reboot coming.
I want to
right?
add one thing real quick.
Yeah.
So the only thing I think I would have changed about this movie is the mythology regarding the mirrors. I like. I think that's says a lot of things about the reflection of a person. But I feel like they could have tied that into his mythos. If they would have had cut his hand off with a shard of a mirror or something like that, to like tie him or bind him to that medium of how you summon him. You know what I mean?
Which is what I was saying, and maybe it's done purposely. Because it is an urban legend. So maybe it's not supposed to make sense.
Because
maybe the rules are
to a different urban legend.
So maybe the rules are sloppy purposely because it's an oral tradition that, oh well, my cousin June has a friend whose sister saw the Candyman. And so in that game of telephone, maybe these rules get switched and changed and what have you. So maybe the things that we take as gospel, such as his backstory and stuff, aren't necessarily completely gospel. And maybe the rules are purposely kind of vague and pliable because that's the nature of urban legends and mythology.
Yeah, and
especially when it's not written down.
Yeah, and it also could be because he alludes to, like, he is a being of some sort. He is tethered to this world because his mythology, like, he lives on through his mythology.
Right.
So it could also be that he just inherits whatever mythology they assign to him. Like, they liken it to, would call him through a mirror. And so, that becomes his vessel.
So, I mean, that's stuff that maybe will get answered here in the future because we talked about the new Candyman they're making. Yeah. And about how, we assumed it's a reboot of Candyman. As I was doing some research, I found out that that's not the case. The new Candyman is not a reboot of Candyman. It's a sequel to the original Candyman.
Oh.
So the story is, from what I've gathered and what I found, is it's about an artist who is down on his luck and moves into these apartments that used to be. So Cabrini Green was tore down and new condos were built in its place, like the previous story, and it becomes gentrified. But our main character in this movie is the infant little boy from the first movie.
Really?
Grown up. Yes.
Okay.
So
that's how you do this shit.
That's how you do it.
So then he is
That's awesome.
brought back, or so he's there and he starts, an old timer tells him about the story of the Candyman and he starts researching it, and then the Candyman starts. So he starts seeing himself as the Candyman in certain scenes. From what I've read, Tony Todd's in it. I'm assuming Tony Todd is the Candyman in it. And Helen's listed as a character returning. It's not Virginia Madsen, but it's somebody else playing Helen. The actress that plays Anne-Marie is in it as Anne-Marie, his mom. So it's an actual legacy story akin to the 2018 Halloween.
Nice.
So doesn't that make you much more excited about this movie?
I was already really excited, but now
that scene comes into play. I hope that they play on it, where he kept that child for an entire month, and like where he's feeding the child. I hope they play on it, but I love this idea. Very excited. This changed the whole dynamic of the movie for me.
Yeah, I was excited too. After I watched this movie last night, I was like, oh, let me look up some stuff on Candyman. I was like, oh, let me look up stuff on this reboot. And then I was like, oh, this is a sequel. This is not a reboot. They're labeling it as a reboot, but it's not. It's a belated sequel to Candyman.
They want to surprise people, I'm sure.
Probably, yeah. Yeah. And so I was excited about that. I was more excited to see this movie than it was before. So, guys, you know what time it is. It's time to Atkinize Candyman.
I don't know if we can do this one.
Oh, I will go first.
We can.
I will go first.
All right,
Tom Atkins would 100% play the Ted Raimi role if I was casting this movie.
Okay.
He shows up on a motorcycle, woos the girl, drinks some beer, and then he's out.
Yep.
It's going to be hard to top that, man.
Yeah.
Should have went first.
What's yours?
I would say the cop.
That would work too.
I know you did it.
That worked too. Lydia.
I guess Trevor.
Yeah, but then I could see you.
He does have some qualities.
Yeah, and the girls do flock to him, so that aspect's there.
And that would explain why she isn't like automatically just like mad and like dumping him, because she would just want to stay with him,
Yeah, because he's Tom Atkins. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
100%. That's a good one too. I think all solid choices. I'm surprised none of us said long-haired professor.
I almost did.
I don't know if he.
I might get kicked out of the podcast if I said that.
Yeah, we all know that I'm going to be the new casted long-haired professor. You mean me? How dare you?
Yeah.
You think you can top me? So, Derek, it's your turn to pick this week for what movie we are watching next week. Should we spin the wheel?
Man, I really debated on this one.
What's he gonna pick?
I think I'm gonna go with the Monster Squad.
Oh!
Monster Squad.
Dropping the bomb on Monster Squad?
Yep.
I just watched Monster Squad.
I have not, but I will watch it 3 times in a row.
You just watched the Monster Squad?
I just watched it.
So do you own that one?
No, I watched it at work.
Oh, nice.
I watched it with customers.
Oh, good. Was it on TV?
Yeah, it's on Pluto.
Oh, it's on Pluto. So there, we know how to watch it.
I own this movie, so I don't need to.
So
That's
guys,
the way to
go
do
on
it.
Pluto and watch the Monster Squad before next week, so then you can be caught up to date with us when we watch the Monster Squad next week. Interesting pick, Derek. That's a good one. That's
Dude, I
actually a
love
really
that
good
movie.
Yeah, that's going to be a good one. We're going to have a lot to say about the Monster Squad, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, we've been on a run of picking really good movies. We haven't had a shit one since, what, Puppet Master?
What are you saying, Jamie? What are you saying?
Yeah.
Nothing. We'll get to some more Puppet Masters here soon. There's like only 13, 14 left to do. It's like, what
we
about
could finish
Bob?
like the entire year just on Puppet Masters.
Yeah. It's like we should do one a month, a Puppet Master a month, and then we would still have to go into 2 months of the following year.
I can't wait to watch more Puppet Master movies.
We'll watch more Puppet Masters. We'll get into those. Whoa, Derek, that was a silent sneeze, but it was forceful.
Well, you missed it. I mean, I just got there just in time to mute the microphone.
To mute, you were just, it was like. Okay, guys. So there you have it. Next week, Monster Squad. This week we have 7, 6, 7 as our pumpkin ratings for the Candyman. And thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week. And remember, if you're going to scream bloody movies. Well, Derek, you are way behind Scream Bloody Movies. See you, folks.
I drank it all.
You did. Are you buzzing pretty good?
I am buzzing pretty good. I have not had that much alcohol in a long time.
You drank a whole bottle of wine, man.
Yeah.